أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الذي هدانا لهذا وما كنا لنهتدي لولا أن هدانا الله والصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء والمرسلين شفيع ذنوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا وحبيب قلوبنا أبي القاسم محمد وآله الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين وأصحابه المنتجبين ومن تبعهم بإحسان إلى قيام يوم الدين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So we stated that the Hayatud Dunya is not a real life in the sense that we imagine it. It's illusory. And Hayatud Dunya is a life enjoyed not only by earthbound creatures, but creatures within the skies and the heavens that fill the skies. Now we call them jinn simplistically or malaika. However, there is a lot more going on out there. We also stated that our affairs have been predestined to a great extent, and we want to go into this theme. But before going there, I have to state that unfortunately, due to taking too long in other sessions, 6 of the themes will be left uncovered. But we'll cite examples just enough to allow us to go towards the conclusion. For example, the connection in the Quran between heaven and the earth. The Quran is very clear that your sustenance is within the heavens and it is revealed in proper portions. The Quran is extremely clear that there are places in the sky where the affair reaches in a day that is 1,000 years of your reckoning. This verse is repeated a couple of times. Then Quran also has a verse that the affairs reascend to God in a day that is 50,000 years of your reckoning. So these are points of references out there. These are physical points of references out there. Why? Because when it comes to the story of the shaitan, you see, shaitan, Iblis is not the first shaitan. The Quran makes it clear they are shayateen. And we will go through some of these verses in a little while. These shayateen come to a place where they eavesdrop, where they hear about the destinies that are being constructed for the children of Adam upon earth. Whereas previously they used to have full access, now they are lamenting that access is denied. They used to eavesdrop and then they come to earth and they would tell the people of the earth what is being destined for them, what calamities are going to take place. And we're going to go into this theme in a little while. So shayateen are rebellious group of people. Shaitan, Satan, of course in Hebrew, means the adversary. And that's the meaning with which the Quran is using it. Shaitan, the adversary. And when Shaitan or Iblis refused to prostrate, the Quran says, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. He was of the deniers, not the disbelievers, because he believes in God. He believes in the hereafter. He says, allow me respite till the day of reckoning or the day you will cause them to raise. He believes in God. He believes that there are creatures like the prophets, إِلَّا عِبَادُكَ مِنْهُمُ الْمُخْلَصُونَ. I will misguide them all, save your chosen ones. So Iblis knows this. He refused to bow, and the Quran says, وَكَانَ مِنَ الْكَافِرِينَ. He was amongst the deniers, not deniers of God, denier of the authority of God. In the Quran, you find this notion of Mala'ul A'la, the higher assembly. Now the shaitan, the Quran says, cannot listen or eavesdrop as to what is happening with the Mala'ul A'la, the higher assembly. But at one point, The Quran says to the Prophet Muhammad, tell them, I have no knowledge of the fight that ensued amongst the Mala'ul A'la. I have no knowledge of the fight that they had. So Mala'ul A'la also had a struggle there. What I'm trying to say here is that jinn, shaitan, angel, we will discover a bit of it today, get a flavor of it today. They are different realities to the naive things that we have imagined. The Quran talks about this dimension of existence and an interdimensional existence as well, which we might do today. There are different ranks of these shayateen and there are different ranks of the angels. The important thing to bear in mind as we embark on today's talk is that there is a huge cosmic struggle. That's amazing when we open our eyes to it. Whereas previously I used to think these are just myths and just stories in the Bible. But actually, when you read the Quran, you think, gosh, there is a huge cosmic struggle. The devil said, I will take them with me. And the Lord said, take as many as you want. And there, as a result, there is a huge struggle for the people on earth as to who takes them. Now, we will discover that today, and it's quite amazing. There are also these intertwined worlds that are acting upon each other. We can't go into this today. There is huge nuance about the day of Qiyamah. And we can see clearly that the day of Qiyamah is not one meaning. There are different notions of Qiyamah in the Quran. So a lot is at play. A lot has gone before us. A lot is coexisting with us in our dimension. Then a lot is existing in other dimensions as well. There is a whole phenomenal story going on out there. When you glimpse at that story, honestly, we feel that our story is not that important. But if we face the prospect of going into hell, then it is important. Nobody wants to go into hell. So now, with that in mind, we go into today's talk. Now, all the verses that you have received, I'm not going to go through them. Yeah? So, for example, the heaven-earth connection, you have Dhariyat, Hijr, Sajda, and 50,000 years, descent and ascent, Ma'arij. But let us look at the nature of shaitan. Surah Safat 37, 610. So the Quran says, Inna zayyana as-samaa ad-dunya bizinatin al-kawakib. We adorned the samaa ad-dunya. Can you see that? We are in hayatud dunya. Samaa ad-dunya. We adorned with stars. So whatever we can see, as the Prophet said, is samaa ad-dunya, which consists of the hayatud dunya. وَحَفْظًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ مَارِدٍ. And we guarded it from every rebellious devil. Now you can imagine, these devils are something to be reckoned with. They're not these sort of mythical creatures that we've imagined. They're actually very advanced beings. And these devils at one point might have been very lofty creatures who then subsequently rebelled, like Iblis did. لا يسمعون إلى الملأ الأعلى. They cannot hear the lofty assembly. The lofty assembly, they go there to try and listen to the lofty assembly. وَيُقْذَفُونَ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ. And whenever they go there, they are pelted from every direction. دُحُورًا وَلَهُمْ عَذَابٌ وَاصِبٌ. They are driven away, and then they have a everlasting torment. إِلَّا مَنْ خَطِفَ الْخَطْفَ فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ ثَاقِبٌ. Except for one who stealthily eavesdrop and steals certain information. And for them is a piercing fire that chases them away. Are you seeing this story? These shaitan are going to a particular place. They are trying to find out what Mala'ul A'la are saying. They can't hear the Mala'ul A'la, but they eavesdrop with whatever means that they have. And as soon as they grab a secret of what's going on in the cosmos, they are chased away and even killed. Look at Surah Hijr, Surah 15, verses 16 and 18. My whole intention here is for us to then open our minds and to become aware that there is something going on here. It's, not as we've imagined. There's something phenomenal out there. وَلَقَدْ جَعَلْنَا فِي السَّمَاءِ بُرُوجًا وَزَيَّنَّاهَا لِلنَّاظِرِينَ. We have made constellations in the sky. We see all the constellations in the night sky. We have made constellations in the sky. And we have embellished them for the seer. Now, if we didn't have the layers of atmosphere around the earth, we wouldn't see them in such a beautiful way. So we know that. وَحِفْظًا مِنْ كُلِّ شَيْطَانٍ رَجِيمٍ. And we have safeguarded these constellations from every driven away shaitan. إِلَّا مَنِ اسْتَسْرَقَ السَّمْعَ. Save for the one who steals a bit of a hearing. They do their best to try and understand what's going on at another dimension in order to know how and what they are to do in this dimension. فَأَتْبَعَهُ شِهَابٌ مُبِينٌ. And whoever manages to eavesdrop, a flame of fire chases him away. Now, if you look at the angels in the Quran, the angels have a very different understanding as well in the Quran. There are angels, jinn, angel, cross, that prostrate to Adam's authority. And then there are those who surround the arsh of Allah, who don't even know that the earth has been created. And then there are those who hold the arsh of Allah. And then there are the likes of Hazrat Jibreel. وَلَقَدْ رَآهُ فِي الْأُفُقِ الْمُبِينِ. He saw him filling the whole of the sky. Then there are those like Mikael, who is grander than Jibreel, salamullah alayhima. By the way, the Prophet used to mention the name of Hazrat Jibreel and would say salamullah alayh. Now, look at this verse. In Surah Al Imran, Surah 3, verse 1 to 3. So there are many different ranks of angels. We just want to explore that a little bit more. وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ. In Al Imran, obviously, they are fighting the battle of Uhud, right? And they've already fought Badr before that. When they were raiding the caravans, they fought Badr at that point, if you remember last year's lecture. So this is now Uhud. In Uhud, the verse comes, وَلَقَدْ نَصَرَكُمُ اللَّهُ بِبَدْرٍ. Allah indeed assisted you in Badr. وَأَنْتُمْ أَذِلَّةٌ. When you were a very small group. فَاتَّقُوا اللَّهَ لَعَلَّكُمْ تَشْكُرُونَ. Therefore, be fearful of God so that might be a state of inner gratitude. إِذْ تَقُولُ لِلْمُؤْمِنِينَ. When you said to the believers, O Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, أَلَّنْ يَكْفِيَكُمْ أَنْ يَمُدَّكُمْ رَبُّكُمْ بِثَلَاثَةِ آلَافٍ مِنَ الْمَلَائِكَةِ مُنْزِلِينَ. Is it not enough for you that God has helped you with 3,000 angels coming down? I want to ask you a question here. One Jibreel fills the whole of the sky. In Badr, the Muslims were 315, right? The kuffar were 1,000, a few hundred, right? Does it need 3,000 angels to finish off 1,000 kuffar? Aren't these angels very weak? Does that strike there? One Jibreel can fill the whole of the sky. Yeah? And here 3,000 angels have been sent. So what does that say about angels? This is what we want to go into it very soon. That angels are not the way we've understood them to be. There is a mighty thing going on here, and we need to awaken to it. I'm good at building suspense, aren't I? I thought about it myself. Salawat. These are the tricks that we have so we can look at the notes again. Bala. In tasbiru wa tattaqu wa ya'tukum min fawrihim hadha yumdidkum rabbukum bi khamsati alaf min al-malaikati musawwimin. Yes, if you are mindful of God and if you are patient, then these are 5,000 angels that God is sending. It's going to get a little bit more intriguing in a little while. So from here we can see that whereas there's one angel that fills the whole of the sky, you need 5,000 angels in front of an army of 1,000. Yeah? And how many of those 1,000 were killed? Not even 100. About 70, right? 60, 70 were killed at Badr. The real thing is that there is a huge struggle. We want to do two things today: the struggle that is here and predestination, and how that struggle feeds into predestination and free will. There is a huge struggle for humanity between the angelic realm and the demonic realm, and that's what we want to bring out today. If you look at Surah Baqarah, how this struggle is happening. Yeah? Verse 268. الشيطان يعدكم الفقر ويأمركم بالفحشاء. Shaitan promises you poverty and commands you to indecency. والله يعدكم مغفرة منه وفضلا. Whereas Allah promises you forgiveness from Himself and His abundance. Now the struggle is not happening outside. This struggle is happening inside us. All those shaitanul marid, shaitanul rajim, that are going towards Mala'ul A'la to eavesdrop, that is another struggle altogether. The struggle for earth is happening at two levels, at a cosmic level and at a psychic level as well. Surah Al Imran 3:174. You see, normally when we want to give in charity, the first thought is, I can't let go of this wealth. Yeah? That is the real struggle between the demonic and the angelic forces, according to the Quran. إنما ذلكم الشيطان يخوف أولياءه فلا تخافوهم وخافوني إن كنتم مؤمنين. That is devil, that is the shaitan, who causes his awliya, his people, fear. The whole of this world at present is governed by fear, don't you see? Look at the anxiety that we have and the fear. And the more fearful we are becoming, the worse this world is becoming. More aggressive and violent the world is becoming, isn't it? Look at COVID. When it came, we were so afraid. We were killing people. We ourselves were killing people through our fear that we were generating. It was affecting the environment around us, the minds around us. When people think good, other people think good. When people are violent, the normal people become violent as well, because the brain waves travel. I don't have a better word for it. When we feel good about somebody, they feel good about us. I feel good about every Maulana. And I know secretly they all love me. But when we feel good, when the majority of the people feel good, the world becomes a good place. When we are aggressive, the world becomes violent. If you look at the, British football fans, they're very aggressive. Wherever they go, there are fights. If they calm down, everything will be calm. But when they are aggressive, everybody becomes aggressive. Do you not see when we're going to a scene of matam, immediately we are drawn in. We lose ourselves. It's the atmosphere that governs us. So shaitan frightens his awliya. The world today is motivated on the basis of fear, preemptive attacks. What are we doing? We are killing people for the fear that they might, after 50 years, do something to us. It's all fear-based. The way we went out and bought stuff during COVID, what was that based on? That by tomorrow there will be nothing on the shelves. So we bought it all today. We emptied the shelves, didn't we? It's all fear-based. God is saying, La takhafuhum wa khafuni. Don't fear any one of those. Just fear me. And when you fear Allah, Allah says what? I'll give you tomorrow's sustenance if you live. Ma min dabatin ala al-ard illa ala Allahi rizquha. There is no crawling creature upon the earth, but that Allah has taken it on upon Himself to feed that creature. But look at how much we want to hoard. Ma'idah 591. إنما يريد الشيطان أن يوقع بينكم العداوة والبغضاء في الخمر والميسر ويصدكم عن ذكر الله وعن الصلاة. Shaitan wants to cause enmity and hatred amongst you through consumption of alcohol and through gambling, and prevent you from the remembrance of God and the salah or connection with God. Shaitan is being true to his word. He said, I will misguide them. But that misguidance does not come from outside. That misguidance comes from our natural human condition. Our natural human condition is frail. And the Iblis takes the most of it, makes the most of it, or the shayateen. The Prophet said, there are 99 routes to the heart of the child of son of Adam where shaitan can get in. Only one route for the angel to get in. Because of our human condition. And that's why God is overly forgiving. He says, I'll forgive everything. Because obviously you're disadvantaged. Now look at Surah A'raf, Surah 7, verse 27. God is admonishing, or the Quran is admonishing, Ya Bani Adam, O children of Adam, La yaftiyannakum, La yaftinannakum ash-shaytanu kama akhraja abawaykum min al-jannah yanza'uhum anhuma libasihuma layuriyahuma sawatihima. Let the shaitan not deceive you as he deceived your parents by removing their garments to show them what was concealed from them. Now look at what the Quran says. إِنَّهُ يَرَاكُمْ هُوَ وَقَبِيلُهُ مِنْ حَيْثُ لَا تَرَوْنَهُمْ. He and his group see you from a place you do not see them. Can you see that? On many occasions you will find ideas popping into your mind and you think, where are they coming from? On many, many occasions. You will have flash and you'll say, where is it coming from? إِنَّ جَعَلْنَا الشَّيَاطِينَ أَوْلِيَاءَ لِلَّذِينَ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. We have made the shayateen friends of people who do not believe. Now, as opposed to that, look at the angels. They too are working from within. Fussilat 30 and 31. Indeed, the people who believe and they say, we have brought faith in Allah, and then they stand steadfast, angels descend upon them, and they say to them, La takhafu wa la tahzanu. Do not be afraid and do not be grieved. In another verse it says, وَنَحْنُ أَوْلِيَاؤُكُمْ فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ. We are your comrades, your friends in this world and in the hereafter. So both these realms are working internally with us. Surah Araf, Surah 7, verse 200, 202. And when a temptation comes to you from shaitan, then seek refuge with Allah. Indeed, the people who believe, when a group of shaitan pass by them, they become mindful of God and they become insightful. So all of these things are happening in a very subtle manner because both of these realms want to have their share of humanity to take with them. I'm just going to go through one or two more verses to just give you a glimpse of exactly what's happening before we move on to the real talk. I'm sorry, the time is going. Now, Surah Anfal, Surah 8, 48. In this verse, when the two groups met at Badr, the Prophet's group and the group of the Meccans, Shaitan promised them. Promised them how? By inciting their hearts that La ghaliba lakumul yawm. There is nobody who can overpower you. Look at how few they are. But when Shaitan saw what was happening, he said, I am running away. I see what you see not. I am fearful of Allah. Retain that verse in your mind. Now, when the Prophet sought help from God, look at this verse. Surah Anfal, Surah 8, verse 12. إِذْ يُوحِي رَبُّكَ إِلَى الْمَلَائِكَةِ أَنِّي مَعَكُمْ. When your Lord revealed to the angels, I am with you. فَثَبَّتُوا الَّذِينَ آمَنُوا. Make steadfast the people who are faithful. سَأُلْقِي فِي قُلُوبِ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الرُّعْبَ. I will drive fear in the hearts of the people who do not believe. فَضْرِبُوا فَوْقَ الْأَعْنَاقِ وَضْرِبُوا مِنْهُمْ كُلَّ بَنَانٍ. Cut their heads off and cut their fingertips off. Now, what I want to ask here is, do you have any recorded history in which it is stated that on the day of Badr, the heads of the kuffar were flying through invisible force? People were just, their heads were just rolling and we couldn't see how they were cut. Can you see this? What heads flew? What fingers were cut? You see, what was happening there was that there were two worlds coming together. The kuffar were procuring their own forces, and the believers were procuring their own forces. And those two forces were cutting them each other down. And that's what the shaitan was seeing. Shaitan was seeing how the angelic forces were finishing off the demonic forces. And that's why he said, I fear Allah, you don't see what I see. There's something phenomenal going on. It's going on beyond us and it's going on within us together. And I'm going to just prove that, how it's going on within us. But Iblis saw how the forces that was procured by the believers were overpowering the forces that was procured by the demons, by the kuffar, the demons. Now look at the next verse, Anfal, Surah 8, verse 65 and 66. These are phenomenal verses. Sorry, did you get it? Surah Anfal 8, 65, 66. Read these verses. I was baffled from the age of 20 when I was reading this. Ya ayyuhan nabi harrad al-mu'minina ala al-qital. O Nabi, encourage the believers on the battle. In yakun minkum 20 sabirun. If there are 20 persevering amongst you, yaghlabuna mi'atain. They will overpower 200. Isn't that amazing? If there are 20, they will overpower 200. وَإِن يَكُن مِّنكُم مِّئَةٌ يَغْلِبُونَ أَلْفًا. And if there are 100 from you, you will overpower 1,000 of them. مِّنَ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا. From the people who disbelieve. Now, 100 to 1,000, that's a huge ratio. Yeah? 20 to 200, 1 to 10, the ratio. Now look at the next verse. الآن خفف الله عنكم وعلم أن فيكم ضعفا. Allah has reduced the burden from you. And He knows amongst you are weak people. So what is the new ratio? فَإِنْ يَكُنْ مِنْكُمْ مِئَةٌ صَابِرَةٌ يَغْلِبُوا مِئَتَيْنِ. Now if there are 100 amongst you who are patient, they will overpower 200. So it's become 1 to 2 from 1 to 10. The firmness of faith procures greater assistance. And when the faith wavers, the assistance goes. Isn't that phenomenal? Isn't that phenomenal? Have you digested that? That there is something happening at the cosmic level where shayateen are eavesdropping. There is something happening at an interdimensional level where these two forces are contending against each other. What we are procuring. And there is something happening at a psychic level. When people, very few of them are staunch, they make things happen. The Prophet Muhammad had very few people, they made things happen. Hussein ibn Ali had very few people, but the energy that they had, my God, it's not dying down even now. It takes a very few staunch, solid people to change the course of history. Now we come to today's talk. Destiny, and I want to go through this very quickly. There are 3 types of destinies we find in the Quran. Preordained. I'm going to take you through the examples of this. Preordained. By God, they are not going to change. Like the day of Qiyamah. He knows when it's going to come. قارئة ما القارئة ذُلْزِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ زِلْزَالَهَا وَحُمِلَتِ الْأَرْضُ وَالْجِبَالُ دُكَّةً دَكَّةً وَاحِدَةً. All these things are going to happen. There is no faltering with that destiny. Then there is destiny that is being made at a particular time, either within a year or some other time frame. And then there are destinies that are being made by the moment. 3 levels of destinies. Let's take examples of each one. Surah Baqarah, verse 238. Drop from it, all of you, some of you enemies of others. And when there comes to you guidance from me, then whoever takes that guidance will not fear, nor will they grieve. Here, destiny has been decided that prophets will be sent. Surah Qasas, Surah 28, verse 7. وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى أُمِّ مُوسَى أَنْ أَرْضَعِيهِ فَإِذَا خِفْتِ عَلَيْهِ فَأَلْقِيهِ فِي الْيَمِّ وَلَا تَخَافِي وَلَا تَحْزَنِي إِنَّا رَادُّوهُ إِلَيْكِ وَجَاعِلُوهُ مِنَ الْمُرْسَلِينَ. And we revealed to the mother of Moses, if you are fearful, then cast him to the river. We will cause him to come back to you, and we will make him amongst our messengers. It was already decided, the destiny. Yeah? وَاصْطَنَعْتُكَ لِنَفْسِي, God says to, or the Wahi says to Nabi Musa, I have made you for my own self. Surah Saf. This is the most brilliant verse here. And when Isa ibn Maryam said to the Israelites, I am a messenger of God to you to verify that which you have of the Torah, and to give you the good news, بِرَسُولٍ يَأْتِي مِن بَعْدِي, to give you the good news of a messenger that will come after me, ismuhu Ahmad, whose name will be Ahmad. It was already decided that Ahmad will come. These are destinies that have already been ordained, they will not change. Surah Yusuf, when they placed him inside the well, فَلَمَّا أَجْمَعُوا فَلَمَّا ذَهَبُوا بِهِ وَأَجْمَعُوا أي يَجْعَلُوهُ فِي غَيَابَاتِ الْجُبِّ وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَيْهِمْ لَتُنَبِّئَنَّهُمْ بِأَمْرِهِمْ هَذَا وَهُمْ لَا يَشْعُرُونَ. And when they gathered to place him within the well, we revealed to Joseph, there will come a time when you will make them mindful of this thing and they will not be aware. It was already known. On the day of Qiyamah, the conversation between Isa and God, Allah says to Isa on the day of Qiyamah, did you tell them to take you and your mother as gods? Isa said, if I have said it, you would have known. This conversation has already happened. It's predestined. Then, whatever befalls you of tribulations within the earth or within your souls, it's already prescribed in a book before we made the earth. That's already been destined. Destinies that are being made. Look at Surah Dukhan, Surah 44, verses 1 and 3. Hamim wal Kitab al Mubin. Hamim and the apparent book. Inna anzalnahu fi laylatin mubarakatin. We caused it to be revealed on a layla mubaraka. Inna kunna mundirin. Fiha yufraq kulla amrin hakim. In that night, every firm affair is settled. Surah Safat, Surah 37, verse 8. They do not hear the higher assembly and they are driven away. The higher assembly conducting the destinies. Surah Jinn, Surah 72, verses 8 and 10. The jinn are saying and lamenting, وَأَنَّا لَمَسْنَا السَّمَاءَ فَوَجَدْنَاهَا مُلِئَتْ حَرَسًا شَدِيدًا وَشُهُبًا. Now when we go to the sama, it is filled and guarded with missiles. وَأَنَّا كُنَّا نَقْعَدُ مِنْهَا مَقَاعِدًا لِلسَّمَعِ. We used to previously sit there to hear what's going on. فَمَنْ يَسْتَمِعَ الْآنِ يَجِدْ لَهُ شِهَابًا رَصَدًا. And now when we sit there, they find fire chasing them away. وَأَنَّا لَا نَدْرِي أَشَرٌ أُرِيدَ بِمَنْ فِي الْأَرْضِ أَمْ أَرَادَ بِهِمْ رَبُّهُمْ رَشَدًا. And now we do not know, does their Lord destine for them evil in the year to come, or destine for them what is good? So this destiny is being made. It is not being made previously, it's being made for the next year or something like that. Then in Surah Al Imran, they say to the Prophet Muhammad, had we sat here, we would not have died. The Quran responds, tell them, whoever upon whom death was prescribed would have been dragged to the place where they are supposed to be killed. They have no choice in the affair. If your death is destined at that point, whether you like it or not, you would have been dragged by your forelock to the place where you are supposed to be killed. You can't stop it. Then you have this thing about destiny not being final. It can be made at any point. So, in accordance with the talks we gave previously, that all these realms are acting, but beyond them is God as God who overrules everything. Yeah? So the Jewish people were lamenting and they were saying, our time of glory has gone. Now it's the time for the Muslims, and God cannot do anything about it. They said, Allah's hand is tied. The metaphor is that it's a domino effect, and Allah can't change the cycle of causation. It's a destiny that's been done, and God can't change His destiny. وَقَالَتِ الْيَهُودُ يَدُ اللَّهِ مَغْلُولَةٌ. And the Yahud said, God's hand is tied. غُلَّتْ أَيْدِيهِمْ. Their hands are tied, the Quran says. وَلُعِنُوا بِمَا قَالُوا. And they've been cursed due to what they say. بَلْ يَدَاهُ مَبْسُوطَتَانِ. Both his hands are open. يُنْفِقُ كَيْفَ يَشَاءُ. He does whatever he wants. And then we find another verse, Surah Ra'ad 13:39. يَمْحُ اللَّهُ مَا يَشَاءُ وَيُثْبِتُ وَعِنْدَهُ أُمُّ الْكِتَابِ. Allah wipes clean what He wants, and He establishes, and He has the mother of all books. Now, we've seen all of that. Some destinies are destined. Some are destined periodically. Yeah? And some are destined at the very moment. God can change whatever He wants. And we become the agencies in that. Now, if we were to look at the whole series of lectures so far, we would say, well, something has been decided and we are just playing our roles out. Now, in that, what free will do we have? You see, I didn't have a say in the societal setup when I took birth. Yeah? I didn't have a say in it. I didn't have a say in my DNA structure, to the best of my knowledge. I didn't have a say in my gender, to the best of my knowledge. I didn't have a say in what school my parents would put me in. I did not determine my family's economic status. All of this was set. None of this was determined by me. My sickness, my health, the poverty, wealth of my family, the broader situation of my community, the religion in which I was born, the way in which I was indoctrinated. There was no say that I had. None of this. You people have not made a free choice in coming here today. All of you could have only made this choice for coming here today. Why? Because there is no free choice. These are all directed choices. Let me just explain that. There is a assortment of Fatiha in the kitchen or dining room after we finish here. The route that you will take from here to there, you might think it's a free-willed action, but your routes are limited, either this way or out and back in. The reason you will go out is because some people will feel hot and their natural condition prompts them to go out to get fresh air. The other people will feel it's crowded, so they will go out. Other people will want to smoke and they'll go out. None of these choices are free choices. These are all directed choices. The Fatiha that you will eat is also determined. It depends on how hungry you feel, how much you like meat, if you've sworn to be a vegetarian for the next few days, whatever choice you make is a directed choice. You have no free will in any of it. None of this is free will. What you speak, what you say, what you meet, who you bump into, none of this is by free will. All of it is determined. And all of it is through direction. If you are to find a supercomputer, if every variable here can be fed into the supercomputer, it will tell us in the next 3 hours exactly what we are going to do. How many chemicals are going to fire in this head, where they're going to go, how they're going to interact. Yeah? There are no free wills. So what is free? What is free in this deterministic setup? Although the director has the final cut, so God can change any of the physical state. But by and large, it's fixed. So what is free? What is free is something that is so profound. What is free is the inner being, how it interacts with these situations. That is free. Nothing else is free. And the two dimensions are after this inner being. The Prophet said that nobody's hereafter has been determined. Your salvation and your your salvation and your damnation is in your own hands. Now look at these verses of the Quran. There will be no affliction that befalls you within the earth or within yourselves, but it's already been prescribed. But look at the last part of that verse, or second verse. So that you may not grieve at what leaves you, and you may not rejoice at what comes to you. It is determined that it will leave you. Your inner being at that point should not collapse with it. That is where you have control, free will. That is where you can awaken and make your destiny. Can you see this? So Umar ibn Sa'd, Qadi Shurayh, they were destined to face that perilous position, whether either they suffer poverty and forego the killing of Hussein, or they fall for greed. They were supposed to, at that point, not be grieved at what was taken away as an opportunity of gaining wealth. But they collapsed, both of them collapsed. That's the same choice Hur made. It was being taken away, life was being taken away from him, but he did not grieve. He kept his inner being intact. And that you may not become overjoyed at what comes to you. Because when you become overjoyed, then you've fallen for dunya. And you have fallen at that point. I mean, I didn't read those verses, but that's what Allah says. This is what I want. And that's what the devil wants. Can you see that? The inner being is the part where destiny is made. The outer destiny is done deal. The inner destiny is free. Now, after the defeat at Uhud, look at these verses. أينما تكونوا يدرككم الموت ولو كنتم في بروج مشيدة. Wherever you may be, death will take you, even if you are within fortified towers. وإن تصبهم حسنة يقولون هذه من عند الله. And O Muhammad, when your followers get something good, they say this is from Allah. وإن تصبهم سيئة يقولون هذه من عندك. They will say, Muhammad, this is from you, because you made a wrong decision of going to battle at Uhud. Look at the way the Quran retorts. قُلْ كُلٌّ مِّنْ عِنْدِ اللَّهِ. Say, everything is from Allah. Everything is from Allah. فَمَا لِهَؤُلَاءِ الْقَوْمِ لَا يَكَادُونَ يَفْقَهُونَ حَدِيثًا. What be the matter with these people that they don't understand the truth? So God is saying it's all from God. Goodness that comes to you, evil that comes to you, it's all from God. But in the following verses, مَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ حَسَنَةٍ فَمِنَ اللَّهِ. Whatever good befalls you, it's from Allah. وَمَا أَصَابَكَ مِنْ سَيِّئَةٍ فَمِنْ نَفْسِكَ. And whatever evil befalls you, it's from your soul. In one point he's saying it's all from Allah. At another point he's saying the evil is from you, your soul. You see, it has to be understood accurately that the situation of this world, the bodily situation, it's all from God. The bodily health, sickness, gain, defeat, failure, success, worldly success is all from God. But if you grow through it, then it is from God. And if you fall through it, then it is from you yourself. So the outer world is governed by God fully. The inner world, that is governed by you. If you grow through that situation and make your destiny, then that is from God, the goodness. And if you break your destiny, then that is from you yourself. So that is the only portion of free will that we have in a predetermined universe. It is like a movie has already been directed, it is being played, but the actors suddenly awaken in a predetermined role. And as opposed to robotically playing their role, they become conscious of themselves and they begin to grow through that role. For our consumption, this world of ours is a very important place. It's a make or break place for a long term future. If we can maintain that inner state of detachment from the outer being and allow that inner being to be in a state of neutrality, to constantly grow, then we have done it. If we fall internally through despair, through arrogance, then we have fallen. But then, of course, God is extremely merciful. When the people at Ohad, when they ran to Abu Sufyan and they said, admit us into your religion and we will start worshipping the goddesses Lat and Uzza. Later on, they found out that the Prophet hasn't died and they felt a sense of utter despair and embarrassment. The Quran said that God will bring out what is inside there so that you may see it. What was inside there was brought out. They saw it and they felt embarrassed. And God made that sense of embarrassment and remorse a means for their inner destinies. So God at every point wants us to succeed. But the real destiny makers are we ourselves, the inner destiny. And that is why we have a chance in this world. If everything was known by God in the naive way that we understand, then there is no real chance. The inner being is left untouched. You make it there if you want to. You will break it there if you want to. You see, the only thing the Prophet used to say was, this life is like the shade of a tree that the rider rests beneath for an hour in their journey. They get up, quickly reascend their steed, and go off on their journey. He said, this dunya is like that. In that 1 hour, the Prophet said, do not become mindless of who you are and where you are. You see, anybody with their right heads, seriously, especially people who believe in Imam Hussein, would not be concerned with dunya. It's good to have dunya, it's good to have wealth, but to lose sleep over the thought of multiplying it, that is love of dunya. Nobody should lose sleep if their dunya is taken away from them. In fact, they should say, Alhamdulillah, oh Lord, you gave me, I was yours. You're taking it away, I'm still yours. You gave me health, I did not transgress against your rights. You've given me sickness, I will not complain against you. That's the sort of inner being we need to have. They speak the truth, not only in front of their subordinates, but they speak the truth in front of the tyrants. Yeah? It takes a lion heart to stand and speak the truth. How many of us are ready to commit ourselves to the truth? Ask ourselves, how many? How many a times this head, the inner head, the spiritual head, has bowed down in front of creatures of God? Honestly, it's easier to bow down in front of an idol because at least that is outside us. What we are doing, and we're going to conclude on that tomorrow, we are doing the biggest kufr and shirk inside ourselves by bowing down in front of others internally for the sake of gaining things from them or for the sake of warding off evil that they may have. The inner being needs to be with God. If God says no soul can die save by the consent of God, then surely after that no fear should remain, right? Even if you find 1,000 swords in front of you, if you truly believe that no soul can die save by the consent of God, what cause is there for fear? As the Quran says, do not fear them, fear me. This is shaitan causing you fear inside. That is the hero that we celebrate on this night. They were riding towards Kufa. Imam Hussein fell asleep as he was riding. He abruptly awakens and he says, Inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. Akbar looks at him, said, Father, indeed, we are Allah's and to Him we return. But what be the cause for uttering the words of istirja at this occasion? He said, O child, as I slept, I heard a caller calling, O group of people, advance towards your death. Akbar said, O father, are we not on the truth? He said, Of course we are. He said, Oh father, then what difference does it make whether we embrace death or death embraces us? Somebody constructed a poem expressing Imam Hussein's sentiment after the Shahada of Hazrat Akbar. He said, O star, how short was the duration of your life. Such are the lives of stars that appear at dawn. How quickly were you eclipsed before becoming a full moon. O Akbar, when I remain silent, you are within my heart. And when I speak, your name is upon my lips. The family of the blessed Imam has been left with him. Habib, Muslim bin Ausaja, all these grand warriors have died. Imam Hussein turns to his Akbar. He says, "O child, I want you to go and face the enemies on behalf of your old father. I want you to be the first ones amongst the Hashimi and go and give your life. But, O child, bid farewell to your mother and your sisters and your aunts." I hear this, that Akbar went inside. They looked at him. They could not bid farewell to him. Every time he would wish to come out, someone would grab him and grab his garments. As Akbar came out of the tent, Imam Hussein looked at him. It is narrated that his eyes filled with tears and he cried out aloud. Hamid ibn Muslim says, it was as if a mother was crying upon the dead body of her youthful son. He raised his fingers to the sky and he said, "O Lord, bear witness against these people, for now I send to them one that most resembles your messenger in his features, in his mannerisms, and in his speech. And whenever we wish to look upon your messenger, we would look at the face of Akbar." He saddled Akbar and he said, "Akbar, go, but go slowly. Turn and look at me." Akbar moved away towards the battlefield and he heard something behind him. He turned and he looked and he saw his father coming behind him. He said, "O father, did you not bid me farewell? Indeed, O child. Then what is this that I see, O father, you coming behind me, so anguished?" He said, "Akbar, had you a child like Akbar, you would not have asked me this question." Akbar goes, "I am Akbar, the son of Hussein, the son of Ali. We are closer to the Prophet than you. Never shall we submit to the demands of Ibn Ziyad, face the blows of a Hashimi and Alawi." As Akbar is fighting, I have heard that Imam Hussein's heart is filled with anguish. He calls Akbar's mother and he said, "I will make a prayer, you say Ameen." He said, "O Lord of Yaqub and Yusuf, as you caused your Yusuf to come back to his Yaqub, bring my Akbar back to me." No sooner has he made that prayer that Akbar came back. He said, "O Father, the thirst kills me and the coat of mail exhausts me." He said, "Akbar, throw it aside and place my ring in your mouth. Go, your grandfather will quench your thirst from the heavenly fountain. Akbar re enters the battlefield. They break the single combat convention and they attack Akbar from all sides. Akbar fights with them. Munqidh takes an oath that I will wound this youth's heart to an extent that will blacken the world of his father. Akbar is fighting. He stands behind a tree. Akbar is struck upon his head. As Akbar is unable to contain himself, a spear is embedded within his chest. Akbar falls to the ground and he says, "Oh father, I bid you farewell." Hamid ibn Muslim says, Hussein comes to Akbar and a woman comes out of the tent crying out, "My son, my child, my Ali," and comes and falls over Akbar. Hussein quickly separates her. I ask, who is this woman? And I am told it is Zainab, the aunt of Akbar. Hussein looks at Akbar. How insolent are these people, O child, who have killed you and put you to death. May God have no mercy upon them. Akbar looks at his father and he said, "Oh father, this is my grandfather who has come to me. He has quenched my thirst and says, Oh Hussein, hasten to me." Hussein says, "Oh child, my world has become a darkened place after you." Then he looks at Akbar and he said, "Oh child, Allah has relieved you of the tests and the burdens of this life by taking you away so quickly." Then Hussein calls the Bani Hashim and says, "Take your brother away to the tents." Hamid ibn Muslim says, as they took the child out, a woman came out of the tents bewildered and said, "Oh Hussein, where is my child?" Hussein quickly ran to her and took her back into the tents. Matam Hussein. Yeah.
So I'm going to walk through a few of the lectures you've done. We've compiled the questions from online, from the WhatsApp group, and perhaps the questions of open-ended questions, hopefully, so you can expand a bit on those. Because I think, especially after today's lecture, or even just before today's lecture, we needed to be in the same place effectively. So if we start with night one, and that night left us with a lot more questions than answers. You spoke about the Quran being a challenge to the Meccans. You spoke about not being able to question the Quran personally at that particular time. You spoke about Prophet Moses. You spoke about God being genderless. You spoke about God being more than God. And to preface all of these questions and this lecture series, in fact, and with your approach specifically in mind, did you ever question the authenticity of the Quran? And you did mention, with no disrespect to other religious texts, that they were subject to discrepancies. So to surmise the question, how sure are you about the validity of the Quran and what arguments exist to oppose this?
Talk about my own self, right? So I look at the style of the Quran, consistency, the message, and I don't find any discrepancy in there. So I don't say that a word is probably missing or a word has been added here and there. That's neither here nor there. But the overall spiritual message, which is the essence, the moral message, which is there, looking at the beautiful style, the ends of the verses, how they end, the consistency. If you look at the Quran, the sequences are always there. We gave you ears, eyes, and hearts at birth. At death or at the level of disbelief, we seal the hearts, then eyes and ears, with hearts, then ears and eyes. These sequences are retained. There's no way something adulterated would retain those sequences over 23 years when the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam could not read or could not write. Even when Jesus says in Al Imran, I will create a bird for you, then breathe life into the dead body by the consent of God. Towards the end of the revelatory era, God talks to Isa. You created a bird by my consent. You breathed life by my consent. You healed the lepers and the blind by my consent. The same thing is retained perfectly. Second, I find certain verses have words that don't mean much. And I encountered that problem that why does this word have this here, this verse? This word doesn't mean much. And then afterwards, I found out that actually it balances out. For example, the word man and woman, boy and girl, son and daughter, they balance out. So sometimes the actual word, the verse, the word in there has been placed, but it doesn't have carry much meaning there because the meaning is already there without that word being inserted. But the overall thing brings out a meaning with that addition of that one word. So I examined the Quran in this way and I thought it's phenomenal. So the end of the verse will say, God is Sami'un Basir, hearing, seeing, never seeing, hearing. Verses will say He created death and life. You were dead, then we brought you to life. There is highest level of consistency. So these were the sort of things that I noticed within the Quran, and then I thought, wow, it is phenomenal, this thing. I don't really rely on hadith and things like that. And I do rely on hadith personally through my form and essence, but I don't rely on hadith when I discuss with others because I know right now the easiest way for people to rebuttal an argument is to say, well, you rely on these ahadith, and we don't believe in the authenticity or so on and so forth. So I thought until I get to the time where I can give my own sort of hadith methodology out, that look, this is the way I verify hadith. If you agree with it, then that's it. If you don't, then we go back to the Quran. And that's why I thought and by the way, you said I asked many questions. We clarified them in the lecture. There is God beyond God. We clarified these things. Now, obviously, I'm not going to spell it out for people because that's not the right thing to do.
So the next night, there was a number of things which were spoken about. The God of gods, Illah, the language's inability to describe God. And this led to some questions online. So I'm just going to share some comments and questions from online. So one of them was, are you trying to prove God is not angry? If God doesn't have emotions, why did he send prophets to reform our character? If God is merciful, why did he not show Iblis mercy when he refused to bow down? Does the Quran describe an anthropomorphic God? And how do we reconcile that with a transcendent one? Is God a multifaceted being or a single being? So I've surmised these into a question again. Is the God of the Quran different to the God to God as he should be understood? And if not, please highlight the differences and show us how we can reconcile this.
Do these questions come from people who have heard the lectures?
They're on the YouTube channel and WhatsApp. So yes, after the first lecture. Yeah. Yeah.
Or at a particular realm, but it's not God as God. God as God is free of emotions. He would not engage with Iblis in a rage, get out and step out and take them all to hell with you. That's not God as God, right? So we've said it, we've responded to all of that. God is beyond enemies. God cannot have enemies. Iblis is nothing. Can you not see that? Is it so difficult for us to understand that God is God? It cannot have enemies. Iblis is like, it's not even a speck of dust. That's what, in front of me, a speck of dust is giving him so much value. The whole of this entirety of somehow dunya is not a speck of dust in front of God. Forget Iblis. How can Iblis be an enemy of God? Yeah? I don't know how else to convey it. I'm very limited in how much I can say. But I don't know. Was that coming through in the subsequent talks?
I think for some of those questions, I think the
Anger, wrath, it is attributable to God. But when you attribute it to God, it has to be attributed at God's functional level in order to regulate humanity and guide them aright. I'm going to explain that tomorrow. But it cannot be attributed to God as God. Yeah? We said that God, the word God gets any credence and meanings through the creative act. But He is beyond the creative act. He is beyond even the time where He becomes designated by the word God. Can you see that? And when He becomes designated by the word God, then He's the first and the last and the lights of the heavens and the earth. Even when He becomes designated by the word God, He is well beyond all these emotions and rage and whatever else we have, enemies and friends. Yeah? So God as the one we can't speak of, He is beyond these things. God as God is beyond all of these things. The word Allah in the Quran is also nuanced, as we pointed out in one of the lectures, that it was used in accordance with the Jewish understanding of the word Allah. In one example, if I don't know if you remember, but we come to the level of Rabb, and this Rabb is regulating human beings. Tomorrow we'll explain how to understand. If we want to attribute it to God, then there is a way of understanding it that we will explain tomorrow. It's like a parent, extremely kind, but in order to discipline the children, will be stern. Yeah? And the parent will say, do this for me and do that for me. Not that the parent needs anything, it's good for the child, but the child, in a childlike state, does not understand any other language. So we have to look at the context of the Meccans. I mean, you say to the people who rejoice in spilling blood and killing each other that God will kill you. They say, yeah, so what? We kill each other. You say to them, you'll go in a hot place. You say, well, it's 50 degrees here. So what do you have to do? You have to say, look, it'll be hotter than hot. Your skins will burn. You'll be given your skins back. The tone has to be a severe one in order to regulate. But at the same time, there is a three-tier approach in the Quran to address the Meccan mind. From a very juvenile, childlike state and hardened criminal state to a state of a human, to a state of a noble soul. Quran uses all these three. So I'll explain that tomorrow. Yeah.
so I think hopefully we can now move on a little forward in the lectures and in the questions. So after night 4, there was a question which was referring to the different uses of the word Lord.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting question. It's how do the Imams react to this, to these different versions of Lord? How do they respond to La ilaha? And have they contradicted your understanding? And someone specifically writes, someone commented, Amir al-Mu'mineen was martyred and said, Fustu wa Rabbil Kaaba. Who is he referring to? The Rabb of the Kaaba or the Rabb of Alameen?
So the very fact that Imam Sadiq said that God does not have a spirit, so he can't blow things into other people, yeah? It is something that he has attributed to his own self. The fact that Imam Sadiq said that this we in the Quran at that instance cannot be God, but these are grand creatures of God that display emotion on behalf of God. If you were to take that as a yardstick, then display of emotion, you have to then conclude that display of emotion and rage, it's not directly God. Can you see that? Now, if I were to say, by the Lord of my body, I mean the ultimate God, and I mean the creative God, because I don't see duality. So when Imam Ali says, if he has made that statement, by Rabbil Kaaba, he means God as God, because his sight does not see more than one God. We said in one of the lectures that with all the nuance, God expects us in the Quran to see only God, no more. Given the nuance, He expects us only to see God. So when we say Lord, we mean the one God, as in how He is.
Thank you. I think there's just a couple more questions from online, and I think then we'll open it to the floor. So if you can keep your questions ready. So in respect to night 5, and I think that's when you particularly talked about the different stages of creation, created you, fashioned you, then prostrated, and that was specifically about Adam's creation. And there was something prior to this life, or many lives before this, at
Didn't say
least
I didn't say many.
at
I
least
said
2
life prior to this.
life prior to this. So
Yeah.
I think you said it can justify from the Quran that there's at least 2.
No. We can justify that before this there has to be one,
Okay, there has to be.
due to which we are here with this variety in our existential circumstances.
So the question, and I think this is the word which has been used a couple of times, and people have referred to other religious texts, Vedic texts, and the sort. So reincarnation, and is there some sort of reincarnation, and is the reason perhaps we've forgotten
Sorry.
partly to not bias the process of bringing whatever is within us out.
So, shall I? Sorry.
And the last part of that was, how do we remember if we can?
Okay. So, reincarnation is an impossibility for Shia theologians and Shia Sunni philosophers, and hence they deny the pre worldly existence. What is reincarnation? Why is it impossible? I'm just taking you through it. It's a bit of a philosophical discussion, yeah? The human soul is the form and perfection of the body. These definitions that the Muslims have are directly from Aristotle. And then there's a hadith of Imam Ali as well, that the human soul is composite in its simplicity. I mean, Muslim philosophers have advanced Aristotelian sort of understanding. It's a vegetative soul, then animal soul, then rational soul. But due to its simplicity, all these souls are subsumed within the higher rank of the soul. So as the soul evolves, it gathers all these souls. Once it becomes a rational soul, it's a human. So as a human being, we have a vegetative soul, animal soul, and a human soul. Human soul is the one that subsumes them all in its simplicity, so it's one. Okay? In its function, it's vegetative and animal. Vegetative means what? To retain the body, absorption of minerals, repulsion, animal, motion, sense perception, rational when we think. Now, when the human being dies, the rational soul acquires a full form and becomes independent of the body. So here the assumption is, contrary to Plato, that the human soul cannot have any existence prior to its becoming a form for the body. And as it becomes form for the body, it grows with the body and it becomes independent of the body. So when we die, the soul projects a body in the imaginal realm. Now, I've just written a paper on it, Pre-Worldly Existence of Human Souls, and saying that, look, what I'm proposing does not entail reincarnation. But what I really believe in is something well beyond that as well, but they did not accept it in the paper. So the soul then projects its own self. Now, if you were to say that the soul goes back to another body, what does that mean? It means that a seed has evolved into a tree. And now the seed takes a regressive dip to come back to becoming a seed. And that's an impossibility because it loses its own identity. It's become this. How can it be zeroed? And again, so that's reincarnation. Whether they become humans or pigs or dogs or whatever, the Quran talks about transformation, right? So the Muslim philosophers say, well, yeah, that's Mullah Sadra. They get an extra differentiate. I don't want to, make it difficult and whatnot. What I say here is that no, what I'm suggesting is not tantamount to reincarnation at all. Although my own views on reincarnation are very, very different. Yeah. What I'm going to say now is something that is compatible with the Muslim philosophers' understanding of the soul, even though I might have a very different understanding. What I'm saying is that the Muslim philosophers believe in a world after this, which is known as the imaginal world, in which we taste the fruits of heaven, in which we suffer the torments of fire. That is in the imaginal world. If the awliya of Allah can go beyond it, then they escape the gardens of paradise. They escape the flames, they escape everything, and they go beyond the imaginal, they become pure intellects in union with God. Yeah? And that's why I keep on saying that God will eventually shut it down, the whole heaven and hell. So I asked them, before coming into this world, you also agree of an imaginal realm. Yeah? What if we can say that there's an imaginal realm in which we existed as individuated souls? Yeah? And the consequence of that, whatever we do there, the consequence of that world are then manifested here in our existential states. But in order to rectify the whole theory, I'm saying that this too is an imaginal world. This is not the world that we think it is. Think about it. Our recourse to the world is through sense perception that is processed by the brain. We really don't know what is outside the mind. The brain processes it all and it creates the whole world. This is, and then when you compare the imaginal realm with this realm, in this realm we are evolving, in the imaginal realm we evolve. In the imaginal realm we project our bodies. In this world, the mind is understanding the world through its own self, not as the world is. Because a bee sees a very different world. My brain is hardwired to see it very differently. Generically, we are hardwired. Can you see that? Whatever I see, I can't show you and you can't see. Whatever you see, you can't show me. It's just that language is loose enough and broad enough for us to be able to make sense. Otherwise, when I say white, neither do you see what I see, neither I see what you see, but white has got a broad enough definition that we can talk meaningfully. Can you see that it's a very complex world inside? So I say, look, this is also an imaginal world. There is nothing but imaginal worlds here. In any case, that paper will be submitted within the next couple of days. It's a very big paper. If you want to read, please do. In which I've given, and I've said, look, according to the Quran, it's this, according to the rational arguments, it's this. And I feel there's a way to integrate it within the philosophical ontology. But I've also written another paper that's been published by Lexington, and that is on the brain death and organ donation, in which I say, look, the human being dies, but the vegetative soul is left behind. You can keep the body alive. The vegetative soul is still there. The rational soul has moved on. So you can actually disjoint the rational soul from the vegetative soul as well. So that's the sort of, I have a very nuanced understanding of the soul. You can keep a person's body alive and the person has gone. There is no person there. The human has gone, but the vegetative soul is still there. The fact that you can take a heart out of one person and put it into another person, yeah, the body has changed. The heart is still ticking away, pumping away. The vegetative soul is still there. Can you see that? Now, the other theory I have is, which they will find so difficult to believe, but you will find it easy to believe. Yeah? You see, these verses of the Quran, send us back, we'll do right now. Well, if the world is already finished, what do you mean send us back? The world is finished, done. The Quran doesn't agree with that. The Quran says they will be in heaven and hell for as long as the heavens and the earth are in place, or for as long as God may want. So it just shows that heaven and earth have not finished in the naive, simplistic way that they've understood it. That's what I'm saying. We need to be honest with the Quran. There has to be some integrity that we don't interpret everything away just because it doesn't feel fit in with our philosophical scheme. Now, in a future world, why is it not possible that all of us here can be in a room, have a virtual experience in which we assume different characters with their memories in their heads? and with our memories being wiped out, and experiencing that person. And when we switch that machine off, our souls are a composite of their experience that they had as them and their experience that they have had through that being. How does that compromise the notion of a soul as being a form of a body? What I'm saying is that these definitions were conceived of by Aristotle 2500 years ago. Then the Muslims came and developed it, Ibn Sina, the brilliant one, then Sohrawardi, then Mullah Sadra, and that was 400 years ago. Technology has moved on tremendously. And now we can understand what is consciousness, the connection of mind with brain. All these things need to be rethought. That's what I feel.
Thank you. That was a lovely answer, which actually answered one of the other questions as well. So well done on that. There is, I think this question's come up a little bit. We asked it previously slightly differently. Just going to reword it because it was said then online that it wasn't answered. So someone's been listening to the Q&A online and said it hasn't been answered. So please, can you ask the question again? So the question with respect to the torment in store for the wrongdoers, what and I think this is because there's like mercy has been juxtaposed to justice. Will Yazid go to hell? If he didn't, wouldn't it be unfair?
I'm not a spokesman on behalf of God, yeah? I'm not going to say he's going to go to hell and he's not going to go to hell. Look, Yazid is his own hell. The verses, وَقُودُهَا النَّاسُ وَالْحِجَارَةُ وَعِدَّةٌ لِلْكَافِرِينَ, its fuel is man and rock. Human beings will generate their own fire. Yeah? So there is a place like hell. Now I'm going to ask you a question. Okay? Can two people commit the identical same sin? Look, there are two people, they both eat stolen dates in the month of Ramadan without the need for doing that. So there's two sins, breaking the fast and eating a date. Is it the same sin? You will say, as far as stealing is concerned, as far as eating is concerned, at the body level, it's yes. I'll say, what about the inner level? Doesn't the inner level give you a proper measure of the extent of sin? You will say, yes, one in a childlike fashion who doesn't understand the worth of God, he just ate it. The other one couldn't care less about God. He says, who cares who's God? There are two different levels of sin. Now, two people have committed, according to us, the same sin, but according to themselves, in their inner being, they've committed different sins. Now, if both of them go to the flaming hell, there is injustice there because they are both burning the same level of heat, whereas they've both committed different levels of sin. So, hell is one place with differing intensities of suffering. Just like two people going inside paradise are not in the same paradise, just as all of us right now here are not in the same hole. We are not. We are in different holes. Is that coming through? We're all understanding things differently. We're all interacting with it differently, right? I mean, I'm enjoying this experience. You don't get me, do you, half of the time? So, if hell was one place with the same torment, hell would be very unfair. Hell would be an oppressive place. So now, Yazid goes to hell due to what he has become. Now, even if the angels were to burn him, it will be in accordance with what he deserves, right? Now, will Allah forgive him? Look, read the Quran. And these verses are repeated. وَلِلَّهِ مَا فِي السَّمَاوَاتِ وَمَا فِي الْأَرْضِ يَغْفِرُ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ وَيُعَذِّبُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ. He forgives whoever he wants and he punishes whoever he wants. Who are we to question the God of gods? Do you get it? Isa is asked, did you tell them, Isa, worship me and my mother? He said, no, I haven't. Isa says, Allah, if you spare them, you are most mighty. If you punish them, they are your creatures. You have full right. You have full right. It's your ownership. Can you see that? Nobody dares speak in front of God. That is the state of God. He will ask, but he must not be asked, the Quran says. He cannot be asked of his decisions, and he will ask us of our decisions. Yeah? So what I'm saying is, yes, people like Yazid and these guys obviously are bound to hell from what we can understand, right? In hell, they will get their fair share of torment. Their fair share of torment is in accordance with the level of their sin and the level to which their soul has become corrupted. Now, to ask, can Allah forgive, is a transgression on Allah. Never ask, can Allah forgive? Don't ask. Allah's decisions are with Allah. I'll tell you this much though. If God decides to forgive Yazid, the first person who will not have a problem with it will be Imam Hussein. Do you know that? I mean, the Khojas will have a huge problem with God, but Imam Hussein will have no problem with him because he understands God to that level. We don't worship God of Imam Hussein. We worship God that we have constructed. It's an idol in the name of God we are worshiping. I'm going to get into trouble for this now, though. Yeah.
Is there any questions in turn?
Check in this paradigm of free will and predestination. What about somebody who doesn't have the apparatus
Put
to?
it closer. I can't hear.
Yeah. What about someone who doesn't? And so, in this world of free will and predestination, what about somebody who doesn't have the ability to exercise their free will, like if they're severely mentally disabled or something like that? What is their purpose? And a quick second question is that people have remembered past lives or the past life. And if they have remembered it, what have they said about it?
So you have to understand, we'll go to the disability one afterwards. You have to understand when people remember their past lives, we don't know what is happening there, what the phenomena is. To admit that people are having past life experiences and they are accurate means that we will have to say that this is an imaginal world from which we are popping in and out. And our souls are developing with each subsequent experiences somewhere else. Yeah? And I find that theory logically possible. It's not a logical impossibility. Yeah? I've discussed this. But the past life that I'm talking about is a life not of this realm, is a life of another realm. Although the past life of this realm as well, if we can shift the model of thought, that doesn't seem impossible either. However, the experiences that people are having, well, I don't know. We have to examine these things further because people have these experiences and they don't actually tend to amount to evidences because there can be multiple other explanations for it. Now, people who are mentally severe, mentally disabled, well, obviously, there is no opportunity that they are having in this life. But is that a form of penance? Well, maybe. Oh, thank you. And God. So this is one of the things that we were supposed to explore. Well, obviously, I took too long in some of the earlier lectures. I think I went on and on a bit. But you see, when we understand God at a tiered level, that God is with every instance, every realm, and He operates in that realm in accordance with His own dynamics, and it is just one God. Yeah? He is the apparent and He is the hidden. Then, from a God perspective, this has already happened. From God's perspective, this has already happened. It's done and dusted, finished. Yeah? From the perspective of a human, this is still happening. At this point, for us, there is no past or future. We are in the absolute now and present. Yeah? From God's perspective, the whole universe is here and now. Time is not linear. So I gave this example the other day. Think about a creature stuck in two dimensions, can only go forward or backward. So now there's a creature there crawling in that direction, looking in search of food, right? And it only has enough strength to walk 5 meters. I already know that creature is going to die. It's not going to get there. The creature doesn't know. Why? Because I'm in the fourth dimension. I have the whole of this room present to me right now. But that creature who is stuck in two dimensions doesn't have the whole of the room present to it. Each step is a new frontier. It's a new path because it can't see beyond that one step. But I can see till the end. So I know, yeah, it's going to, by the time it gets there, it's going to be dead. I know its destiny, I know everything. But that creature doesn't know it, poor thing. Yeah? Now, if somebody was in a dimension above, then they know, yeah, there they are, it's all there, it's all done and dusted. But the story is far more colorful than that, actually, because any of the dynamics here can change at any moment as well. It's all done and it can all change. It's a very odd world, a very mysterious sort of a world. Just go into some research into what different dimensions may look like. And I'm sure you will get a perfect understanding of how it's all a block universe. Look at the theory of block universe, you know, it'll make sense of these things, how it's all done and it's happening. Yeah? Yeah, you're welcome. That's it? Yeah. No, no, I think we are just one simple consciousness. You know, what we are is this awareness. This awareness is what we are, what we call I. Yeah? Deep inside, what we call I, that's what we are, that deep awareness. But of course, we go through these exercises to try and refine it to say, well, look, I'm not my features, I'm not my genders, I'm not my ethnicity, I'm not my religion. And when you peel away at that, you'll say, well, you know something? At the core of it, I'm not even my likes and dislikes. I'm not even my thought processes. I am, but I don't know who I am. We come to that point. But for now, who are you? If you ask me, well, I am what I feel I am as my identity. So, whatever you hear about in spiritual literature as nafs and heart and brain, this, well, I've explained this to some extent in book 5. These are different levels of identity. Yeah? The brain, the mind, the soul, the heart, these are different levels of the same identity. How that consciousness operates, that's when these things get different designations. But at the end of the day, I am what I feel I am in this consciousness. But when we peel it away, we'll see, I'm not what I think I am, but yet I am. Yeah, this is a difficult one, isn't it? So, from what I have been able to deduce, whatever I was in my past has determined this at present. This situation of mine, the way I am, and the dynamics has been determined by my past. Yeah? Now, what was I in my past? I don't know. What did I do? I don't know. I don't remember. Oh, that's the thing. Why don't we remember? If we remembered, then if this is a test, as the Quran says, this is a test and whatever, it would not remain a test. If we remembered, we knew, we will know it's not a test. It's only an hour's sort of an experiment or an opportunity, and we will all behave properly, and the truth about us will still remain concealed. Yeah? You know where the difficulty comes in is because in our minds, it's very simplistic, and of course, that's the way we operate. God and us, Creator created, that simple model, without any nuance. That's the difficulty because we are accustomed in thinking that way. Creator created. Yeah? We are not accustomed to thinking in a lot of nuance. Yes, Creator created, but how? And that's why we have these problems. God, me, what did I do? Why am I here? First and foremost, God as God should not be concerned with this sort of human life, to be honest with you. He shouldn't be. He's too lofty. Yeah? God is way, way too lofty. So there is God and other explanation. That's something that we wanted to glimpse at during these lectures. That there is a lot going on. Yeah? I'm so sorry. I'm tongue tied. I can't respond to that question. Because I don't know. Because it wants to prove something, so you're going to put your hand up. And that is the gesture that you have to perform. Now you're nodding because you know that is confirmation. Now you're smiling because you think you have to show appreciation of what I'm trying to tell you. You're looking in this direction because I'm sitting here. You're doing that because something in your mind prompted you to do that. Show me one of your actions that is not without a cause causing it. Nothing. There isn't anything. There is only one level at which we are free, and that can be the interactional level, not the action or reaction. See, look, if somebody offends me, and my natural disposition is to retort, but if I were to just be calm and just say, okay, I'm going to digest this, yeah? You will say, yes, but that was determined you were going to do that. I'll say, yes, I agree. I perfectly agree. But the inner being resisted the temptation that was prompted within it. That was my freedom to resist that temptation. Yeah? You are going to do it. Yes, I know I was going to do it. I was going to resist it. But the feeling cannot be predicted. Feeling cannot be given to me. Actions can. Interactions can't. That is the unique point of freedom. Now, once I interact, that will take a different trajectory. Immediately I interact, it will change the full destiny till the day of Qiyamah. If I start living in that zone, then I'm constantly making my destiny, constantly. But it's all predicted. Unpredicted, predicted, unpredicted, predicted, they're living simultaneously. So at the interactional level, what you feel is the only thing that cannot be fed to you, because that's uniquely you and your soul. The gesticulations, the thinking processes, the looking, the speaking, all of these are actions. The feel part of it is you. So when you interact, you can become uniquely free there. Yeah? And you can grow through that. However, that also does not mean that the bodily destiny doesn't change. We can change bodily destiny. That's the phenomenal thing about this world, that no matter how you analyze it, it defies analysis. Because Yamhullah ma yasha wa yuthbit, Allah wipes clean whatever He wants and He makes firm. So the Quran says, وَلَقَدْ ذَرَأْنَا لِجَهَنَّمَ كَثِيرٍ مِنَ الْجِنِّ وَالْإِنسِ لَهُمْ قُلُوبٌ لَا يَفْقَهُونَ بِهَا. We have made for hell many jinn and man, because they know many will go in there. But who in particular will go? Nobody knows. Who in particular? We know many will go, but who in particular? Nobody knows. Because the fate is open till the last moment. Now, does God know? Yes, of course. God as God knows. But does God, in His capacity as the governor of human life, know? He's kept it open. As the Prophet said, and I know this is very difficult, that God is God and God is the governor of human life. I know these are difficult notions, and I can't say anything beyond this because I don't understand. So, does God know? God knows, and God has left it open, because if everything was known, then for God to give us this opportunity in itself would be a bit of a defeat. It would just defeat the whole purpose. So the Prophet said, your fate is undetermined. Salvation and damnation, you will choose for yourself. What happens to you, whether you will succeed or you will fail, that's in your hands. So now, there is nothing about us that is purely free will. There can't be. When you decide to go home tonight, you will be controlled by other road users, by the traffic lights, by the condition of the road, by the tires of your vehicle, by the condition of the car. Yes? Every one of these things are determining you and the course you take. The roads that are available, that are open, will determine what course you take. The choices you make will already be known. Your inner state, how agitated you get, will be determined by what conversations you have, what foods you have eaten, how much you have slept last night, how tired you are right now. Yeah? How much of a headache you have. All of these factors are determined. In the ambit of all of that, the decisions that you're going to take, which we feel are free will, none of them are free will. They're all directed choices. So we feel I have a choice, it's a directed choice. But what is free is us taking the ownership, that feeling of ownership, that I have made this choice and I make myself responsible, because that is uniquely us. That feeling. Nobody can induce that feeling but us ourselves. Go on, Sukina. The inner being is free. The bodily being is caged. You can't be free. There are 8 billion people on this earth that are restricting each other's freedoms. Yeah? We can't be free. What is free is inside, and that is what makes us or breaks us, what we become in there. Yeah? Now, that doesn't mean that a person who is good inside there and commits a crime will not be punished. Yeah, they will be punished, because that's also a part of recompense. But the true salvation and damnation comes from the inner being. So let's say, look, my DNA was given to me to the best of my understanding in this world, right? My parents, well, were given to me. My surrounding, my religion, my cradle, every single thing was given to me. There's nothing I could do about it. The sort of DNA that constructed my brain and the environment gave me the trajectory that I embarked upon. What about me was free? The only thing that was free was me thinking I'm taking these decisions and taking responsibility and ownership. That was the free part of it, even though it's all a done story. But that was the free part of it, how I'm interacting. Yep. And if you were to get a supercomputer and input all the data of a person's life and everything around them, the computer will tell you exactly every breath of that person, provided they know what everybody else is going to do as well. Sorry. Interact. Interaction can be free. We can. Majority of us robotically interact. So we are never free in that way. We are being made, but not through free choices. Very seldom do we awaken from within and arrive in the zone of neutrality, where we interact as free agents. But you can say, look, and I've done this on many occasions. So I'll do this, and I bet you they're going to react like this. Spot on. You do that, it's a trigger, they react. You put another trigger, they react. I mean, they've become clever now. You put another trigger, they react. You can predict precisely because you know they're robotically going to react to what you're doing. Can you see that? So you can conduct that experiment. You will see with people that majority of us are robotically behaving. There'll only be a few people who will pop awaken and they will choose to make a free non-robotic interaction.